Okay, in this module we're going to look at how to work with shapes in After Effects and also import from both Photoshop and Illustrator. So we'll start with importing from Photoshop first. There is a texture.psd file that you guys can work from. And to import that, we can either go up to File, Import, File, hotkey Command I. Or another option, which I usually like to use, is in your project panel, you can actually just double tap, and that'll open up the import window for you. So I've already got my assets organized in this asset folder. We're going to start with the PSD file first, the Photoshop file. So go ahead and select that, and don't click open quite yet. What we need to do first is we need to tell this to bring in the separate layers that were created within this Photoshop file. This is going to be our texture for the background of our ghost petal animation that we're going to make. So we're down here where it says import as, switch that from footage to be composition. We have the option of composition and composition retain layer sizes. The difference is if your layers are either smaller or larger than the file size, then when you choose composition layer size, it'll change the size based on what the actual content of that layer is. We'll keep ours, the composition size, which is going to be 1280 by 720, which is the standard size composition within After Effects. We'll choose composition. We don't want sequence enabled. What that would do is it would actually sequence our layers like a kind of traditional animation. So leave it as composition, leave off Photoshop sequence, and click open. Now we get this little pop-up window asking us how we want to handle our Photoshop file. Leave it at composition, the same as we set before. And if you have layer styles like drop shadow or inner strokes and stuff like that to your layers, you can choose to either kind of bake them into the layer so that they're kind of flattened down into the layer, or you can have them appear as effects within After Effects. There's no layer styles placed on this, but there are a few adjustment layers, and I'm going to go ahead and leave this at editable layer styles because I want to be able to edit those adjustment layers, even though I don't think either one's really going to affect it because I think this is very specific to those like outline, drop shadow options. But we'll leave it on editable layer styles and click OK. It'll take a second, and then it's going to import a composition, which looks like any composition you would make in After Effects. And there's also a folder, and that's going to house the different layers. So we have two adjustment layers, one for curves, the other one with a photo filter, which is tinting out the background. And then we have our PSD file, which is a gray texture file. So don't go and drag these down to your layers because it's going to put them in a different order possibly, or also if they're smaller, if you do like retain layer sizes, it'll kind of offset the position of them. What you want to do instead is just double click on this composition, and that'll open your whole composition in. Apparently I had guides in and I didn't even realize it. So we have our original Photoshop texture, which is this background layer. We have curves. And the nice thing about the curves is you can go into your effect control and you can still edit the curves. You don't have to be stuck with what you came up with in Photoshop. And you can even animate these curves because you can see the curves option has a keyframe next to it. Same is true for the photo filter. If you don't want a purpley background, maybe you can change the color, and we can adjust it once we get our Illustrator file in here too, and we can see what colors work best together. Right, so in this lesson we looked at how to import a Photoshop file. The next one we're going to look at how to import an Illustrator file with layers.